Brendan talked about authentic relationships, and that's really what this is all about. I lived here 11 years from 96 to early 07, and I moved to Houston, Texas, and was there for 8 years. That was an experience. But when I came back, my plan was always to come back. It was what self-respecting New Yorker goes to, Florida, then go to Texas. Doesn't make any sense. But we came back, and what was most interesting was a really good friend of mine from Crestmark Bank, Steve Hansen in Houston, connected me with his counterpart in Tampa, Jeff Mitchell. Jeff, in February of 2015, says, if you want to get reestablished in the state of Florida, because I didn't know really where I was going to end up, you got to know this guy, Russell Slappey. Russell Slappey is different. He's a CPA by trade, and he's the youngest of 4 CPAs in a family. Can you imagine 4 CPAs in a family? Yeah. But Russell and I have become very close friends. I call him a business partner in every respect. You'll get to know him just by his energy. A CPA's got a lot of energy. This guy probably drives 40,000 miles a year around the state. But he's going to share with you about the myth versus the reality of value and valuation. And he's got one of his partners, Gary Cohen, and Kent Cooper from Capstone Commercial. Russ, stage is yours, man.
Where's that clicker?
It's right here.
Let me get the clicker going. So, first, everybody, hi. Yeah, I spend about $4,000 a month on cars. That's great, isn't it? So, driving around the state. Got to have 2 cars, one of which didn't work this morning. I had to flip over. So, anyway, what we're going to talk today about is the company valuation, why you need to understand your valuation, et cetera. So, what's the myth versus the reality? How do I hit my goal? So let's start with a little story. I'm going to give you 2 stories on this slide that just happened this month. I'm going to hang on Gary up the whole time because I like him a lot. So, I just went out to a potential client, I don't know, it was 3 weeks ago, and there's a $60 million plus staffing company. I don't want to give away too many details, but they got a huge contract with the Air Force. And I'm sitting there. They actually have a part-time CFO, which is what we do. So it's an unusual situation because there's a CFO at the table that I'm replacing. A law firm referred it in. I'm like, so what's going on here? This is unusual for me to have the CFO admitting I'm taking her job. And they had a little issue. The FBI might have raided the place. So there was a little bit of a legal issue. But it ended up being nothing, actually. It had nothing to do. The government misunderstood something on the contract and how they were doing it. That's why the attorney referred me. But the bank wanted them to change finance companies, or more or less wanted them to separate these 2 companies that were working together under the contract and get 2 different banks involved. So they told the CFO, you can't be on both sides of the transaction. So you got to get another CFO for the company I was interviewing. And so the big issue on their mind is we got an $8 million financing we got to get done because, the bank, I won't name the bank, we don't want you anymore. You got to go on and get your own financing. We're sticking with the other company. So the company basically split in 2 for all without getting a lot of details. So I'm sitting there and they're like, we got 4 term sheets. The broker's got it under control. I know the broker. I call the broker afterwards. She tells him I'm a good guy and we're a good firm. And the attorney referred us in. I go out there last week, the auditor, I know the auditor showing up. So, but here's the funny thing. So I'm in there, I think Tuesday, really getting started. And I'm sitting down actually this was kind of in the conversation. I said, the bigger issue, you guys are concerned about getting the financing done by the end of the month. I said, to me, that's not the issue. And he goes, well, what do you mean? I said, your contract ends in 12 months with the Air Force. What the hell are we doing next year? And he goes, well, I'm thinking about selling. What would you buy that company for? 60 plus million and the contract ends in 12 months. Exactly. I said, you don't have nothing to sell. I'm sorry, but if I'm a guy that can put out let's say, and he makes pretty good money. Let's say it's worth 10, 12 million on EBITDA, which we'll talk about in a minute. Would you go buy that company or another company? Got plenty of options, right? Go to a broker, look at all kinds of companies worth 10, 12 million. Why in the heck would you buy that? And the owner's like, you're right. What are we going to do? I got 12 months. I'm like, I'm going to call a broker. I'm going to have a contract for you tomorrow, and we're going to start looking at companies to buy. And that's actually how it went down with that client that I started on Tuesday. I've already got the broker going. We're going to get a contract and get moving. So, the importance of identifying value and understanding value, not necessarily, the biggest issue I see with a lot of clients is not, we all have in our head, including me, because I'm the founder of Nperspective, what is the value of the business? The real question is, what does the outside world think is the value of your business? And you've got to start to understand that. So the importance of identifying value. You want to begin with the end in mind. Where do you want to be? Quantifying retirement. What do you need to retire? We all have a goal. We all have different goals. Some businesses I walk in, they've put a lot away for retirement already, so they really don't need to get a huge value on the company they're running. Some businesses, like me, that's my only asset, because I spend too much money along the process. Here's another one, estate and tax planning for identifying value. Now, David, I'm gonna ask you a question. Here's a client, my client, who's a very secretive guy. I get David, Paparot, and Jeffrey introduced to the client like 3 weeks ago. I was totally frustrated as the CFO. I just started out there like 9 months ago. The CPA can't get the tax returns done. He's constantly behind. He doesn't return my calls. I'm over it. It took me 6 months to convince him to switch CPA firms. I would have thrown the guy out in 2 weeks, So finally I get the introduction going. And the other owner goes, by the way, I got to divulge something. And we're like, uh-oh. It's the first meeting with, Grennan Fender. He goes, I'm selling the business in 2 weeks. Okay? $30+ million transaction. Why is that important? Everybody says, oh, good for him, right? And I'm happy for him. David, how much would we have saved him if we knew this a year ago or even 9 months ago? Maybe ballpark. Just throw out a ballpark versus the $5 million paycheck he has on April 15th now. $2.5 million this guy would have saved had he came to his advisors and said, oh, by the way, I might consider selling next year. Even a by the way would have been good enough to get us going, right? $2.5 million this guy lost. And I don't want to remind him every time I see him, but I do. So, the good news is we're going to save it on the second sale because he actually sold only half the business without getting into the details. So another reason you need to identify value, buy-sell agreements with your partners. What is the value? What do we need to have insured? Insurance planning. How much insurance do we need to buy for the buy-sell agreements? I've done deferred comp arrangements where you have a key executive officer you want to compensate. How much are you going to give him? What's the value of the company? If you're going to incent him the right way. So you need to understand the value for those type of arrangements. Stock option plans, same kind of thing as a deferred comp, another way of giving a piece of the company in a way to a key executive officer as part of their compensation. So those are all reasons you want to identify value. Get this work. So kind of a show of hands in the room. How many business owners is the business the biggest piece of the pie for them as their majority asset? Okay. So a good, I'd say half. So some of us actually have put away for retirement. Hey, that's a good thing. I like that. So I have to say, for me, a big part of my value as far as personal net worth is the business. It could be because I have too many kids and ex-wives that I don't have a lot of money sitting around. So, right, Gary? So, yeah, that's a whole other story. So, but you'll find the business value is a big part of most business owners, small business owners, and the under 50 million, their assets. Now, I don't want to go through all these glossary of terms. EBITDA, though, you do need to understand earning before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. That's what EBITDA stands for, and it's up there. That's what you use to do a multiple of the business. The standard valuation of a company thumbnail, and Kent's, if he starts smacking me around for saying things, feel free, because he's the valuation expert. But a lot of times when you're out with a client, they ask, so what am I worth? A lot of times you'll do an EBITDA calculation. You take your net income, add back interest, depreciation. What am I missing? Well, a lot of people don't have taxes because they're not a C Corp typically in Orlando. If you're an S Corp, you don't have the tax issue. So you add those factors back, you get a number, EBITDA, and you multiply it times an industry multiple. What are most of the industry multiples today? 4 to 7 is the typical?
I'm going to show you a slide later.
Okay.
Somebody had one company for sale, 34 buyers, anywhere from 3 to 7 times.
Yeah. So just give you an idea, you take your EBITDA, 3 to 7, that's a thumbnail, what we call thumbnail valuation, quick and dirty. Doesn't necessarily mean it's right. You have to go through a real process if you want to, and hire somebody like Ken if you really want to know what people would pay. There's the discount rate, the weighted average cost of capital. I don't want to get too much into dirty details. I'm sure Kent's going to cover some of this later. But more what I want to talk about today is the company-specific risk. The risk unique to a company, generally within the owner's control, added to the discount rate. So, well, Daryl, you've been down this road before, right? In the current, are you currently, or you're with Valencia now, right? I know some of your partners, by the way. So what's a unique risk in your business, if you had to name one?
We run on contracts. So the core components of our contracts, for example, and the fact that it's transferable, that's built into our standard part of our contracts. If we're working off of client contracts, in many cases that's not the case.
Okay.
So there's risk relative to potential buyers and the transfer of those contracts, which make up our value.
So if I was a buyer, that would be a risk I'd definitely hone in on. Let me ask Sylvia, what's a unique risk to your business, if you had to name one?
I am project manager.
I'm sorry?
Project manager. I am project manager. And
Okay.
Maybe you don't reach the deadlines, the deadlines for some
Okay. Okay.
project.
Cole, what's a unique risk to your business? You had to
The phone
ponder one.
stops ringing.
I'm sorry?
The phone stops ringing.
Well,
No,
that's definitely a bad risk. But what is it, the sales process, the uncertainty? Is that more the issue?
Yes.
Okay, good, good. Eric, you probably have one too.
Yeah, my friend, the franchisor, could open another office in the area.
Well, that's a very good one, right? So everybody has different company-specific risks depending on the industry, the business model, et cetera. So we all have to kind of face that given what we each do. So now, how do we, well, let's not jump too far ahead. So the process of identifying value, there's several things to think about. Financial analysis and benchmarking. You know, you can look at peer group data, comparative market data. We actually at Nperspective, we use a software called ProfitSense. It'll take your financials, lay in industry, similar financials of the industry. You can look at your ratios versus your competitors through that data. It's good for benchmarking. So that's one way to start that process. One of the things you got to do for getting the value is recasting your financials to normalize the EBITDA. So what is that? That's where an owner has 2 company cars they're running through the company, health insurance benefits they're running through the company. What's a recent one? A family member that doesn't do anything at all but is on the payroll. That's a very popular one. I got an uncle in my manufacturing client. We're going through payroll, and is this guy a production guy or an admin or a sales? And I'm like, who's this guy, John? Oh, that's our uncle. He's sitting at home. Oh, great. I'm glad he's on the payroll. Okay. So, so you got to do all these add backs to get your true discretionary expense. And that's part of normalizing the EBITDA. When a buyer's coming to look at your value and your financials, which of course drives the valuation, you can normalize the EBITDA for add backs such as owner discretionary benefits. Formalizing a realistic set of projections, working with your management team. What's your forecast? What kind of value do you see over the forecast? You know, Alan, you said to me before the event, he's doing concrete construction. I got a hell of a backlog right now. And if you're in my business right now and you don't have a backlog, well, you might as well get out of business. Because right now, construction's booming. So, knowing your projections, understanding that, I don't think he's here today, Another individual's actually thinking about selling that we're talking to, and he was talking to me just like you, Alan. He goes, I got a great backlog. And I said to him, well, wait another year to sell, because all that's going to come to fruition in the P&L. His EBITDA for next year is going to be huge, right? So why not let's get one more year under the belt to get the valuation up, unless there's market risk that offsets that the following year. Could be, you got to weigh that. So a lot of times you go through a business assessment to identify points of key risk and value. What are the risk points, the strengths, what's driving value, what's detracting value. That's kind of doing a self-assessment of your business. People like us do that. Determining a range of values. There's comparable company transactions, and this is where I got Pratt Stats, Cap IQ. There's different software that the valuation companies use that help evaluate your financials, look at the industry, know the multiples, right? And so those are some of the softwares out there you can lean on to help you understand all that. And then last, the capitalization of earnings and discounted cash flow. I'm going to let Kent get into that later. There's ways to identify value, things you have to go through. Now, and Kent, feel free to jump in anytime you want, because I'm a fast talker, okay? So, the value worlds. I'm not going to go through all these. There's different ways, different opinions of how you value the business. That's why you hire a valuation expert to kind of do the fair valuation from a professional's point of view. When you really get into doing the real valuation, when you get into the mode of getting ready to sell, as opposed to doing the thumbnail quick and dirty. What I want to talk about today is the intrinsic value. What's the company worth to a buyer and seller like us in the room? What am I going to give Daryl for his business if I go look at it? What does it really trade for on the open market after, owner discounts, small business discounts, et cetera? And that is the value the owner can affect, is the intrinsic value. And we're going to spend a minute here to talk about that. So let's go, everybody read this slide for a second. And then I want to show of hands. I actually kind of read this too. We got company A, EBITDA grows to $1 million. Owner runs the business, systems and processes to create growth. No real management team in place. Sales are generated by the owner. Owner is both CEO and CFO. Company B, EBITDA grows to $1 million, same as example A, but they have a management team that runs the business. They have systems and processes that are ran by the management team. The management team creates the efficiencies within the business as opposed to the owner. The owner vacation 4 months of the year, or let's just say vacation 12 months of the year. Rick, which one would you buy? Who's in the room would buy A versus B? Anybody?
Depends on the price.
Like my man. There is that issue. I love it. That's good. All right. So you can see how, and these issues are affected by the owner and some of the things he's doing within the business. So let's talk about that for a minute. There's external factors, market factors, like industry trends. Construction can be up and down. Industry factors, interest rates going up and down. So those are things a lot of times out of the business owner's control. We can't affect that as much as some of these internal factors. Planning. Do we have a 3-year strategic plan? A lot of times, Gary's been he's a great strategic planner. I'm actually very impressed with what he does. So to talk a little bit about what we do with clients to do a 3 to 5 year strategic plan.
Well, we'll get in there and we'll assess where the business is at, meet with the CEOs and the presidents, the senior management team, figure out where the business is, see if they actually do have a mission and a vision or any strategic plan. Have they done a SWOT analysis, which is an analysis of strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats, and try to figure out where they are, where they're going, and what are the strengths of the business, what are the weaknesses, what are the best things that can happen over the next several years to increase the value of the company. And I found a lot of businesses, maybe like a lot of you out there, they've started as entrepreneurships. A lot of them are, as you call, mom and pop. It seems like we have an entrepreneur running the business. We have, who's usually the gentleman, the wife is running the accounting department. They're growing, and you get to a certain part of 5 million or 10 or 15 million in sales, and there's really no strategic plan. Everybody's just doing great because of the snowball effect and the selling the great products and services, and then it's time to maybe slow down and try to formulate a real plan to continue this. And so a lot of times that's where I get involved, and it's a lot of fun to harness that energy and that good positive movement and get it into more of a disciplined and structured manner.
So it's all about laying out, kind of course, we're numbers guys, so we always want to put numbers to everything. So kind of laying out, 5 years forward, our revenue's X today, we're going to grow by a 10% run rate, but how do we accomplish that? What are the resources we need, the salespeople we have to hire, the ops people we have to hire, the delivery, working backwards from that 5-year goal and getting into the details of all the different aspects, basically, of the investment we got to make, the capital we got to have, tons of decisions. So, and then you keep working off of that plan going forward, because it's going to change, and like everything as a business owner, it changes as you go, right? So you update that plan every year, but now at least you have a strategic plan and a vision, or a detail to get to your vision and a plan, as opposed to all in the owner's brain. Nobody else in the company really understands. Has that been communicated to the company? Do the managers know their goals? Are they held accountable? That type of thing. Senior management team, do we have contracts with our senior management team? Like I was saying earlier, do we have stock option plans, deferred comp arrangements? A lot of times you can incent people, like if you're on the path to sell, what's going to keep your, say, vice president of operations hanging around? Does he get anything, or is he going to jump ship on you because he knows, he starts to sense you're going to sell the company? So let's develop a compensation plan where we give him a little piece of the pie if he's our right-hand man. And there's ways to do that, multiple ways to do that, through deferred comp arrangements, stock options, bonus plans. So you got to incent your team, and also incenting the management team to hit certain goals, not just you're going to get a base of, a base and a $20,000 bonus because you're a good guy. That's not the way high-end people want to be paid. We need to incent them to hit their goals, look at the compensation plan, get creative. You don't have to do the basic salary plus commission, salary plus bonus. I've seen a lot of these plans as of late.
Russell's point, I remember at one place where I was CFO for about a dozen years, and my bonus, there were 5 different areas where I had to hit goals, and I was rated in each of the 5 areas. And so if I hit, the top notch in all 5 areas, then I was, then I would get the maximum bonus, whatever that ended up being based on the company's performance. So I already knew going in, these are the areas that a CFO is expected to perform, and I was going to perform in those areas anyway. But it kept me thinking about that. To Brandon's point earlier, I was getting a paycheck, I was getting a bonus, and I didn't want to do great work and get a $10,000 bonus and do mediocre work, get a $9,000. I knew if I did great work, maybe it would be a $20,000. If I did mediocre, okay, it would be $5,000. So I'm going to aim for great work.
But you had 5 distinct big vision goals that kept you going, so that you were growing the company and keeping it on track. And it's the same thing with the COO and all the other managers on the team. Sales and marketing, I think on this one, what are some of the internal factors, Kent, on sales and marketing that you can think of off the top of your head that the owners can effectuate?
Well, I'm coming from the point of view of being a broker.
Right.
And the only reason that somebody's going to be looking at acquiring that company is they're going to examine their sales and marketing, because that's what is generating the revenues. Without the revenues, there's no reason to buy the company. You're also going to have overlaps of SG&A that you need to, maximize your profit by minimizing those cost centers.
Right.
So sales and marketing, that's the whole key to a business.
About the concentration, right?
And the customer concentrations are very important too. That's one of the first things that the buyers look at is if you've got $1 million in EBITDA and you have 200 customers, what's the concentration of those number of customers for that number of sales? If 80% of your sales is from 10 of your top customers, that means the other is going to be, not providing very much. So if you lose one of those key customers, you're really something.
It's like the staffing company I'm talking about. He's got 99% of his revenues coming from one customer, one contract.
I think
Bad.
we see that a lot in the construction.
Yeah, we
area.
do.
In construction,
Yeah.
I got a construction client, it's like that, probably 90% of the revenue comes from 2 customers.
Yeah.
So you need to, and so if something happens, it's very difficult to recover. You can only cut costs so far.
It lowers the value of the business.
It does lower the value of the business.
But this is something that I've worked on with a large law firm, and now we're going to work on with a staffing company. We've got to improve the customer concentration risk, and it takes a couple of years. I mean, it's part of the strategic plan, right? You gotta add that to the strategic plan. This is a major company risk, company-specific risk that we've got to now work on getting more customers. If we got to hire a whole nother sales team, whatever, or we got to go acquire somebody like we're going to do with this client I was referring to. Human resources. What is the company's culture? Do we have a dictator at the top and everybody's, process oriented only? Do we have, everybody loves to come to work there? Are we promoting, family values and the growth of the company? The culture's a big thing, because if you do an acquisition, culture's a huge thing. We did an acquisition with one of the law firms I was working with a couple years ago, and one of the owners of that acquisition, the company went under. 800 employees out of work, and it was all because of one officer as part of that four-man team we acquired. He was such a pain in the rear to deal with. We were infighting. It was ridiculous. I mean, every management meeting, we ended up infighting between the 6 managers on this team, the acquiree, and the 4 on the acquirer. He was such a bulldog in the meetings. His other owners wouldn't fight with him. They probably gave up over 20 years of dealing with him. So I gave up with him the first meeting. So tried though. But eventually a bad acquisition can cost you, and that's part of culture. You gotta understand, if you're doing acquisitions and yourself, if somebody's gonna acquire you, what your company culture is. Somebody gonna want to come into your organization, merge with your organization. Is it gonna work? You gotta understand that's a huge thing on the human resource side. Operations. Do you have defined processes and procedures on the operations side, on the finance side, on the sales side? Do people have, if you lose somebody, we see this on the finance side all the time, a controller quits. They don't have the accounting close documented. So guess what? We get hired to go in and document it. You're gonna pay somebody like me and Gary $10,000 to come in there and document your accounting close, because nobody can come in and do it because that person was holding the keys of the kingdom. And guys, you think this doesn't happen? Give the one that the governor sits on the board that we had to come in and fix.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so the governor, I won't even say the name.
Yeah.
So public-private, $200+ million, and it's time to do the annual audit, and they let the VP of Finance go. So you have the senior VP of Finance, you have the Director of Accounting, and the whole staff. And so I come in the middle to help out where the VP of Finance was, and nothing was documented. Everything was in that person's head. So basically, I sit down with the Director of Accounting who knows how to go through the system, and we have to figure out how to recreate everything that person who is no longer there did, and figure out where things came from. And so it was an interesting process, and we still got the audit done about 2 weeks later than normal, but it took a lot of time and effort. And I've had small manufacturing companies where I went in, the CFO quits, and it seems like that's what usually ends up happening. I sit next to the accounting person because they know the company and how to get around it, and I know what's needed. We just figure out how to get things done, and then we document the processes. So as my time becomes less and less, the people who are there can implement what needs to happen. But that's a real typical scenario.
Oh yeah. So these are all things, once again, that the owner of the business can start to implement to improve his value. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. So we got to get moving. So finance and legal, audited financial statements versus internally, just generated financials. If you have audited financials, does it improve your value, Kent?
Absolutely.
That's a big one. People don't want to pay the expense. Go
How
ahead,
much
Al.
the difference is there as you go to market audited versus reviewed?
It depends on the size of the transaction started, okay? Smaller businesses can get away with stuff that's not probably audited, as long as they're good financials. I can't tell you how many times I go to a small company, and I concentrate on the lower middle market. Those are companies that are sell between 3 and 20 million. So the bigger, middle-sized companies, they've got the accounting staff, the CPAs, the audits, all that kind of stuff. Because there's a lot more money involved, banks don't have that stuff. But if I have a company and they have a good CPA firm that's doing at least looking over their books, it may not be a full audit, it might be a review that they do annually, that's just as good. Because it gives power that I can show a buyer. Most of my buyers are private equity group buyers. So they're going to want to see that these financials are real. I can't tell you how many times I go on a company, a guy says, well, I've been thinking about selling my company. Okay, well, let me look at your financials. I'll get their financials. And the first thing I look at is the balance sheet. And it doesn't look right. I look at the P&L and then that is definitely not going to be right. So, I mean, it's a whole process. But if you've got the professionals that are doing the financial for you, it makes a whole lot of difference. You're not going to sell a company otherwise.
Accrual-based financials versus cash. The law firms are big into this. So when we did 4 acquisitions in a couple of years with that law firm I was working in. We go to acquire one of our big competitors because the market was changing. So you either had to acquire or sell. It was in the foreclosure business. And there's a $25 million big, or actually I think they were $50 million. So they're one of the big boys in the industry in the foreclosure business. He sends me financial statements and they're all cash. And I said, I need accrual. I don't really care about your cash basis financials. I can't tell what the hell you're making. I know that's nice you made some receipts, cash receipts. He goes, we don't do that. And I said, well, you're not getting acquired. See you later. And that's basically what happened. So accrual-based financial statements, very important to understand cash versus accrual. All right, so those are all things, company-specific risk. So protecting value, once you identify your value, you want to protect your value. Having a written business continuity plan, your succession plan, what's that going to look like? Buy-sell agreements updated and funded, life insurance funded for the benefit of the owner's family. Do you have business interruption and other risks adequately insured? Do you have, the big one on the screen, do you have your employee agreements to protect your IP, non-solicitation and non-compete agreements? Do you have that with at least your officers and your key management team? People are not going to acquire you or buy you without you locking in some of these issues. Very dangerous. So you got to have those agreements in place. And it's a hard conversation if you didn't do it when you hired them. It's a hard conversation, so you better start working on it years in advance. Because it's hard to wean it in after the fact. People don't want to sign agreements after the fact. And other high-risk issues. Does everybody understand what a non-compete, non-solicitation, the importance? Eric, you're there shaking your head. You're probably realizing, yeah, I get it. So,
Before I interview him, I'll make him sign.
Good. Actually, with our partners, and Gary can tell you, that's the first thing we do. We have agreement. You can't get in the door with our firm without signing that agreement. It's not, so I don't ever have to go back now and worry about that, so it's good to do. So real quick, here's a I don't want you to get lost in the calculation. That's not the point of the screen, so don't sit here and try and do the math. I don't want you doing that. But this is just an example of how you do the math to do a kind of what we call a thumbnail valuation. V is the value based on capitalization of earnings. We're going to assume $1 million in free cash flow. The discount rate, the weighted average cost of capital plus the CSR, that's the company-specific risk. Okay, that's what we're talking about. What are the things a business owner can affect? The company-specific risk. So let's just assume the weighted average cost of capital is 9%. You got a small company premium of 5% because you're a smaller company. Like I said, I don't want you to get lost in the calculation. But if you can move the needle on the company-specific risk, meaning these things we're talking about, do you have a strategic plan? Do you have accrual-based financials? Do you have audited financials? Do you have documented processes and procedures? What's your culture like? What's your sales process like? If you can move that needle 10% on the company-specific risk, that shows the opposite of 40% decline as the risk goes up. But in the inverse, as the risk goes down, you go from 4 million to 6.7 million. That's a 40% increase in value that you as a business owner can effectuate without effectuating the other issues, which we all want to do, which is, of course, net income, free cash flow. Everybody knows if you improve net income, your valuation is up. Yeah, go ahead.
This is really just showing you also, this 4, 5, or 6.7 times earnings is what that is. Instead
Yeah.
of trying to mess with the cap rates and the growth rate, discount rates.
So it goes to kind of the next slide to your point, Kent. You know, if you're going to maximize value, how do you do it? You can lower the denominator or the company-specific risk, lower your company-specific risk, and that's going to make your valuation go up. You can increase, of course, the numerator, which is the free cash flow, the net income. We all can figure that one out pretty quick. But that's how you get your valuation up. You get the valuation up by transferability of the business. Do we have customer contracts? Do we not have the concentration again? Do we have documented processes? Do we have the people locked in with the right non-compete and non-solicitation agreements? Do we have the key officers locked in on the event of sales? Do they have a deferred comp? Do they have a stock option plan? There's some kind of employee agreement to lock them in case the transaction does go down. You know, what's the durability of our revenue and cash flow? That helps support. Typically, when we buy companies for my clients, we're going to do it on debt. So if you have steady Eddie cash flow and steady Eddie increasing revenue 5% a year or 10% a year, I can sure get bank financing to take you out much quicker than somebody that's roller coastering, right? So I go into that staffing company and he says to me, well, how are we going to do the acquisition? And I looked at him and I said, your financials don't matter that much when we go to acquire. It's the financials of the person we're going to acquire that matter. Because when the bank takes you out, they care about mostly about the acquisition and what the cash flow looks like with that, because that's their asset. You know, all they're doing is funding future cash flows. If you can show you have past cash flows, they can fund future cash flows. That's how a bank looks at it. So, and of course, they want your company to be healthy too. They're not going to give you the loan if your company's not healthy too. So.
I didn't think banks could, private equity can, but I didn't think banks.
Oh no, I buy companies all day long on debt. You bet your bottom we do, yeah. Staffing companies do it all day long. ABL line, they look at their AR and they go, you're worth X asset. Well, with a staffing company, typically what you're going to do is you're going to fund a portion of the buy through their accounts receivable. They'll do an ABL loan, an asset-based loan, 80% of the AR, and then there's usually some cash out and then a seller note for the differential. So it just depends on the metrics and everything, you know. And of course who the buyer is, how much wherewithal they have cash-wise. Some of them have enough cash to just take you out because they want you, you know. So, but yeah, you can do debt deals all day long on buying. So, you know, as you develop your strategic plan, you know, what's the required investment to meet some of these initiatives, you got to have that planned out. You know, next year we're going to build a sales force for new markets. We got to hire, you know, $300,000 in new people. So we got to be looking at our investment in that, you know, in our plan of attack. You know, working with your advisors, you know, this guy that sold for 30+ million, how about we work together and probably figure out a way to save you $2.5 million? That would have been nice. And having regular meetings with your management team and advisors. Biggest issue too I see when we go into clients, the wealth planner, the estate planner, the insurance guy, the CPA, the attorney. One of the reasons we do these meetings now is we're tight with everybody else in the room now. When we're talking to clients, we're realizing, you know, I can bring Rick in to talk about insurance risk with a client, and I can easily bring him in. That's why we're all hanging out together doing these events. Because now when we go out to clients, we're as a team and we're all communicating across. That helps the client grow, be protected, be ready for an eventual sale. So make sure you have an advisory team that's helping you as you get going forward. I think that's it, Jeffrey, right? I wasn't jumping through this, right? So we're going to skip past a few. There we go. So, okay, why don't you come on up? So thanks. That's it for me. So.